All right, just so we can be ready to go. All right, sir, if you could come back to the stand, please. Thank you. All right, and I think we're ready for the jury. That's fine, thank you. All right, you can have a seat, Mr. Bett. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, just a reminder, Mr. Bett, that you're still under oath, okay? All right, thank you. All right, cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Bett.
Good morning.
You're a full-time employee of Mr. Depp, correct?
That's correct.
You've been working with Mr. Depp for about 15 years,
Give or take, correct.
and you make a salary from Mr. Depp, right?
I do.
And in your role, one of your top priorities is to make sure Mr. Depp is safe and that if he's out, he gets home safely, correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Depp's safety is a priority over others that may be out with Mr. Depp, correct?
His safety along with the safety of the people that are around him.
But Mr. Depp's safety is the top priority, correct?
Correct.
That just goes without saying, right? In your role as his chief of security, right? And your job as security is to remain discreetly in the background, right?
Correct.
You were not part of Mr. Depp's family, right?
Correct.
You're not with him 24/7, right?
Correct.
And you weren't with him 24/7 when he was in a relationship with Miss Heard, correct?
Correct.
And you obviously have no personal knowledge of what happens when you're not around, correct?
That's correct.
And you have no personal knowledge of what happens behind closed doors with Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
You weren't, when Mr. Depp was in a relationship with Miss Heard, you weren't traveling out of Los Angeles as part of Mr. Depp's security, correct?
I did on one occasion.
What occasion was that?
We did a trip to Austin, Texas.
But other than that, you didn't travel outside of LA as part of your security when he was with Miss Heard, correct?
Correct.
So you weren't in Australia in March of 2015, right?
Correct.
You weren't on a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles in May of 2014, correct?
Correct.
You didn't go to the Bahamas with him, correct?
Correct.
You didn't go to Tokyo with him and Miss Heard, correct?
Correct.
You're around him almost every day when he's in Los Angeles, right?
Almost.
Picking up food for him,
Yes.
pick up medicine for him,
Yes.
help coordinate visitors to his house
Correct.
or his houses, pick up groceries for him,
Yes.
and you let him into places like his residences, right?
Correct.
Because he doesn't carry keys for them, right?
Correct.
You drive him places,
I do.
right? Almost every time he leaves his property, he's being driven rather than driving, correct?
Almost every time.
And you help arrange that, right?
Yes.
Your responsibility, one of them, is to help get him where he needs to go, right?
Yes.
You've woken him up in the mornings before?
I have.
And yesterday, I believe you testified that sometimes Mr. Depp would have just a glass of wine or two, right?
Yes,
And you testified that his demeanor when he was slightly intoxicated was the same as if he had had a glass of sparkling water. You remember giving that testimony?
I do.
Fact is, you've seen him much more impaired than that, right?
I have.
You've seen him impaired enough that you've had to help put him to bed before, right?
I don't understand by putting him to bed.
Well, there have been times when Mr. Depp was so impaired that you had to get up the stairs and open the bedroom doors for him, right?
Well, that specific bedroom door in his Los Angeles house, it has a tricky lock to it. So it's, there have been times where I've gone upstairs and maybe had a glass of water for him. And so I would have to open that door for him, correct?
Right. So you've gotten him into bed. You've gotten him some water. You've asked him if he needs anything, right?
Correct.
In times when he's been impaired, correct?
And times when he's just had breakfast and some coffee.
And you've stayed with him, and during times when he's been impaired, there's times when you've stayed with him until he lays down and you tell him goodnight and that you'll see him the next day, right?
I wouldn't stay with him. I just would say goodnight. I'm going home and I'll see you tomorrow. Or if I happen to have a few days off, I'll see you in a few days.
Now, yesterday, you've actually prevented people from calling the police when Mr. Depp's behavior after drinking was bothering them, haven't you?
Prevented people? Mm-hmm. There was one time, correct?
Yeah, and in that occasion, Mr. Depp and some other people had a couple perfect bottles of wine and pounded an entire bottle of tequila, right?
I don't remember how much they had to drink, no. I know there was drinking going on.
Mr. Depp told you that they had had a couple bottles of perfect wine and pounded an entire bottle of tequila, right?
I don't remember. That was some time ago.
Heather, can you pull up Exhibit 892, please? Mr. Bett, is this a text exchange that you had with Mr. Depp on September 1st, 2017 at or 2:34 to 2:36 in the afternoon?
If you just give me a moment, let me put my glasses on.
Sure, take your
I
time.
have a hard time. Thank you. Okay, much better. Can you repeat that statement of question?
Sure. My question was just, is this a text exchange that you and Mr. Depp had on September 1st, 2017 from 2:34 to 2:36 in the afternoon?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance, the date, this is well after.
What's the relevance of 2017?
The relevance is that Mr. Bett testified yesterday that he'd seen Mr. Depp have a glass or two of wine, and this is direct evidence to contradict that.
All right, I'll allow it. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Since there was no time frame on that. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, according to the timestamp and date, that is a text message from Mr. Depp and I.
And at 2:34 p.m., Mr. Depp texts you, steaks were excellent, pondering, though we'll likely have dinner here. Steaks were excellent, a couple of bottles of perfect wine. We then pounded an entire bottle of tequila, 3 exclamation points. Then the savagery commenced, 2 exclamation points. Good morning, 3 exclamation points. Did I read that right?
You did. And there's an X and fascia after that.
Okay. And then you told Mr. Depp that you said, I prevented them from calling Popo.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
All right. Here's-
Also improper impeachment.
That's for the context of the text. And when he testified that he had prevented him from calling the police.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. So then, Mr. Bett, you texted Mr. Depp back 2 minutes later, and you said, I prevented them from calling Popo. Glad you had fun. You mean dinner in room or restaurant? Do you see that?
I do.
And you sent that text to Mr. Depp, correct?
I do.
And by Popo, you mean police, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You told him that you were glad he had fun, right?
Right.
Your Honor, permission, move for admission of Exhibit 892 and permission to publish.
Our objection is relevance. This is well past the relationship between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard.
Okay. If it was just used for impeachment, why would it come into evidence?
Well, it's Mr. Depp's statements about what he did when he pounded an entire bottle of tequila and the savagery that commenced go toward his use of alcohol. That's much greater than.
In 2017? I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're aware that Mr. Depp has used drugs, right?
I am.
And you've helped facilitate Mr. Depp's drug use on occasion, correct?
I haven't.
I'm sorry?
I haven't.
You have not?
I have not.
Heather, can you pull up Exhibit 967, please? Mr. Bett, feel free to take the time that you need to review this document, familiarize yourself with it. But my first question for you is just, is this a text exchange that you had with Mr. Depp on June 12th, 2019?
June 12th. According to these transcripts, yeah, it has my name and his name on there.
Right. And it starts at the bottom and goes up, correct?
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention to the timestamps.
That's okay.
My
It's hard
apologies.
to orient yourself with these sometimes.
Okay.